Welcome to the latest edition of Business Beat, brought to you by the Prescott Chamber of Commerce. I'm Sanford Cohen, past chair of the Prescott Chamber.
And I'm Sherry Heine, President and CEO of the Chamber.
And today we've got a real exciting guest for you to talk about the latest in vehicle technology, which I'm really excited to find out about driverless cars and, electric vehicles and stuff like that. So we have Ed Walsh from Lamb Auto Center coming as our special interview guest. But in the meantime, we want to get an update on what's been going on with the Prescott Chamber of Commerce. And for that, we turn, as I am doing right now, to Sherry.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a great month in April for all of our past events that I'm going to share with you. We hosted our very first Heroes Night program, and that was at Embry-Riddle. And the goal of that program was to honor all of our first responders, those that have served in the military, and it was just a beautiful evening. It actually was rather warm for this time of year, but more importantly, we had over 150 guests, and we had presentations from all our first responders, and we just celebrated what they do for us every day. And so it was a great program, and we're already planning to expand that for next year. So stay tuned and look for those details. But this is part of that initiative that working with the veterans and the military and all of our first responders. It's a niche for the Chamber, and we're very pleased to launch it, and it's been going very well. We also had a very successful job fair, over 1,000 jobs were offered, and I believe they filled almost all of them. Maybe not quite all of them, but pretty close to that. And our Coffee Connect is always a popular program, and many of our businesses have gotten leads from that. So we just continue to have a great programming for our business community.
Well, and as a natural segue, we can talk about the economist that appeared here in Prescott, courtesy of the Central Arizona Partnership. Sherry and I both attended a very informative presentation by Dr. Stephen Happel from ASU. And I've seen Dr. Happel speak before. He was at Yavapai College a few years ago. And, what he may lack in sober analysis, he makes up for in just flat out humor, which, it's kind of hard to be humorous and talk about economic data at the same time.
Yes.
But part of the reason why I chose to wear this to this edition of Business Beat is because we are clearly on the trail of economic prosperity here in Prescott, Arizona. And that was the good news that Dr. Happel shared with us, that Prescott is definitely leading the way in terms of job creation, not just in Arizona, but in the country. In terms of markets our size, our economy is performing tremendously, and a lot of that, according to Dr. Happel, had to do with the atmosphere of deregulation as well as the business tax cuts and so on. And no greater evidence of that than with the job fair. The fact that so many people are looking to hire people right now, and those jobs are getting filled, but a lot of them are going unfilled. There's a lot of contractors in town, for instance, that are having a hard time finding subs because there just isn't that much of a supply of workers relative to the demand for construction right now, which makes it more lengthy and more costly to get stuff done. But as you can see, when you go around the Prescott area, there's no shortage of construction projects.
Not at all. And we also had an update from the tourism office, and tourism is up as well in the Prescott area. So
Bed tax is up.
There's a lot to celebrate here in Prescott.
Well, and the fact is that when you look ahead to the coming tourist season, which we normally associate with the summertime, the fact is that our unusually warm winter and early spring has contributed to increased visitation here in Prescott as well. And so the Prescott Chambers numbers reflect that. We're up on in-office visits and all the other things that we do, relocation packets and so forth. So the fact is that the Chamber has been gearing up for what they hoped would be an increase in the overall economic health of the city of Prescott, and lo and behold, you're being rewarded.
Yes, we are. I will tell you, at our staff meeting on Monday, Robert reported we're averaging over 100 guests coming through our front door every day.
Every day.
We're open 7 days a week, and they're just coming in to gather information. So it's important to have information in the visitor center, and we want to make sure we keep it stocked.
Well, and most people that come to Prescott get here by car, and so we have a car expert to talk about the current and future state of the transportation industry as it applies to Prescott. One of the longest family-owned businesses in Prescott, Lamb Chevrolet, has been here since the 50s. And so Ed Walsh, the general manager of Lamb Chevrolet, is going to be our special guest here on Business Beat. So stay tuned. We've got lots more coming your way on the Business Beat here, so don't go away. And we're back on the Business Beat, and joining us as our special guest on this segment is Ed Walsh, General Manager of Lamb Chevrolet, but also a lot of other brand names under the Lamb heading as well. Welcome to Business Beat, Ed.
Thanks, Sanford.
Now, just recap for the folks, the different brand names that Lamb entails, and your campus there at Prescott Lakes Parkway and Highway 69 is noted for what has to be one of the biggest American flags that I think I've ever seen.
Yes, it is. It's bigger than anybody can realize from the ground. I always say that if you look at a Chevy Silverado sitting underneath, you could put 3 Chevy Silverados just in the blue section of the flag.
Now there had to be something deliberate about that, because I know when you come up over the hill from the mall going towards your shop, I mean, you literally, that flag takes up the entire horizon as you make that turn. And it really is kind of spectacular to see that.
It's, I'm not sure we planned it that well, but it's amazing how it fits right in there, and especially when the wind's blowing. It was quite the project to get that installed. And what people don't realize, the flag's about 12 stories. 1.5 to 2 stories underground. So think about moving a 12-story piece of metal up I-17. It's quite the flagpole.
Well, and some of the brands that you carry are the ones that are best known amongst the American cars. So talk a little bit about your portfolio of General Motors cars.
Well, we are Chevrolet and Cadillac at our Chevy location, and we also have Nissan next door. So that's a great portfolio. Gives us the imports, gives us the domestics, and really gives us 1 or 2 vehicles in every segment that somebody might want to buy.
Now, the history of Lamb Auto Center goes back quite a ways. Talk a little bit about when and how it first got started here in the Prescott area.
It was purchased back in 1957 by Ted Lamb's father, Theo Lamb. He had been a car dealer out of Texas, and he had told General Motors if you found a spot in the West, he'd be interested in growing. So he came out here and purchased the store. He then continued on and ended up having a chain of dealerships in San Diego. And then when Mr. Lamb, Ted Lamb, got married, he did not want to be in San Diego. Just wanted a small town, and Prescott was a very small town, to make a nice living and raise a family.
Well, Ted obviously is still active in the business, but you have definitely become the face of the franchise, so to speak. Talk a little bit about how his philosophy and being involved in the local community has kind of permeated the culture there at Lamb Auto Center.
Well, you know, when Lamb Chevrolet was getting going, Prescott was a very small town. I'm from a small town in Iowa. My family had car dealerships back there. And my father was in a peer group with Mr. Lamb. So I used to go when I was 8, 9 years old and sit in the room. So the reason we probably have similar values is we come from similar backgrounds, but he's also known me since I was a little kid. So he knew what he was getting and what kind of family tree I came from when I hired on.
Now, in the car and truck and SUV business now, it's an interesting time because, just like just about any other retail business, you have to deal with outside forces, but yet you're not only able to continue your success, but I know that you are quite proud of the fact that you have a number of people that come up from the Phoenix area to buy cars, trucks, and SUVs from you. Why do you think that is?
Well, we're fortunate in the car business that there's no volume discounts. Every car dealer's kept at fair and equal footing, which means we can undercut and undersell the biggest dealer in the valley, as well as the smallest dealer in rural Arizona, if we're having a bad day, can undercut us. We've taken the attitude that we're just going to be very, very, very aggressive on pricing. So we get a number of people with the internet coming up out of the valley because they can save some money. Plus, it's just a lot more pleasant experience. We're a little more quicker, our paperwork's a little more efficient, and people have just found us a lot more fun to come up to Prescott and buy a car.
Well, one of the questions in anticipation of your appearance here on Business Beat that I've been wanting to ask you about is the advent of driverless cars. I personally think that it's a loss of freedom when you're giving up the ability to make your own way, so to speak. What has been the talk in the car business about these driverless cars, and is this something that you see as a benefit or a disbenefit or a non-starter when it comes to your business?
Well, first of all, it's coming faster than anybody can realize. We'll have in the next 45 days a Cadillac on our lot that can basically drive itself down the highway. And it's coming so quickly. Some people perceive it as a loss of freedom, and maybe that's our nature to look at the negative part of it. But any self-driving car, Sanford, is going to have a button to disable it. So it can drive you, or you can turn it off. However, you're probably 30 years away from your children coming to you and saying, "Dad, give me the car keys." It's no longer safe for you to drive. And that's the ultimate loss of freedom. I'm probably 10 years away from having to have that conversation with my parents. I'm never going to have that conversation. They can go buy a car that when they're 95 years old, they can get in it and say, "Drive me to Napa." And the car can drive them across the country, or drive me to the grocery store, or drive me to a doctor appointment. So really, that's the ultimate freedom that we're going to be able to keep.
Well, and in our business, in the radio business, there's been a lot of talk about the additional productivity that is made available by a driverless car, that people can actually sit and do more text messaging and more work can be accomplished in that commute time that otherwise is not available to them right now.
And it's that time that's going to bring it about so quickly. You currently have 18 companies, all spending billions, all pursuing the same dream. And that is the car companies, the auto suppliers, but as well as Google, Apple, Uber, Lyft. They all have the same dream, and they all want to get there first. Even our Chevrolets we sell now, on the in-screen infotainment system, they now have an app on there called Shop. You can now shop from that screen. Right now, General Motors rolled out a pilot where you'll be able to pay for gas from that screen. Well, when the car is driving, that's going to give you free time and screen time. And particularly Google is absolutely cannot live with the fact that they might be locked out of the car. So Google, who's probably the world leader right now in self-driving technology, followed closely by General Motors, it's a moonshot for them. They have to be in that car.
Now, the other advent that many people are excited about is the electric car, and Chevy Volt has been, one of the one of the pioneers in electronic vehicle technology. What's the current status of electronics in terms of being able to give people the opportunity to travel further, let's say, and what kind of gas mileage, or I should say fuel mileage, do you end up with when you're looking at one of these totally electric or hybrid electric vehicles?
The Chevy Bolt currently is an all-electric vehicle. That's Bolt with a B. And that will go 239 miles on the charge, which handles 99% of driving and can be a great second vehicle for a household of two.
What did I call it, a Volt?
Well, there's a Volt,
There's a Volt and a Bolt.
and a Bolt, which I wouldn't have named them both with that same. And the Bolt is the first car at an affordable price to have that range. The Chevy Volt is not a hybrid. The Chevy Volt is an electric vehicle driven only by electricity. However, when you run out of electricity, an onboard gas generator creates electricity and powers the battery. A hybrid is driven by both gas and electricity. A Volt, not Bolt, its closest, the only parallel to a Chevy Volt would be a GE locomotive. That is how a GE locomotive is set up. And I suspect, I've always said long term, that the 2030 Toyota Camry, when you pop the hood, will be a Chevy Volt technology underneath. The gas motors will get smaller, the battery will get stronger, but that type of system where you don't have redundant powertrains will probably be the future of propulsion.
Does this blow your mind? You know, the way all of this technology has brought all these changes into your industry?
You know, we lost a generation of technicians when we went from carburetors to fuel injection, and they simply said, I don't want to learn the new technology. Now we have hybrids, we have Volt technology, we got pure electric. Fuel cells are out there and could be coming. And it's all coming simultaneously. Every credible person in the car industry I've heard has said you're going to see more change in the next 10 years than you've seen in the previous 100.
Wow. And you know, you're obviously have, no pun intended, plenty of gas in the tank to be able to witness what's going to be happening. I also want to bring up the fact that you recently served as chairman of the Prescott Chamber of Commerce. How important do you consider the Chamber of Commerce to the overall health of the business community here in Prescott?
You know, it's important that we have a voice that speaks for us. It's no secret, I got into the Chamber of Commerce reluctantly. And I look back now and think, what a horrible mistake it would have been if I would not have gotten involved. 7 wonderful years of my life being involved, met great friends that I'll have forever. And you see the importance, when you're in those meetings, you see the importance when policies, legislation, zoning, code, anything that might affect the business community, that you have somebody who can speak for you.
Well, I know that Lamb Chevrolet has been a tremendous community partner of the Chamber, and that's something that Sherry and I both want to thank you personally for your leadership and for the great friend that Lamb Chevrolet and Lamb Auto Center has been to the Prescott Chamber. We really do appreciate what you've done.
That's coming from a small town. Phoenix has lots of big businesses. They have these giant corporations down there. In Prescott, we have each other. And I have a saying, nobody's going to take care of Prescott but Prescott. And so, yes, we need to stick together.
Ed Walsh, thank you for joining us here on Business Beat. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Sanford.
It's the fastest 13 minutes in sports. We're going to be back with some final thoughts, so stay tuned. More Business Beat coming your way next. And we're back on the Business Beat. Sanford Cohen along with Sherry Heine. And let's look ahead to what's going to be going on later in the spring and maybe even later than that. We have a very, very busy and ambitious event schedule.
Well, as we talked about earlier, we are gearing up for the tourism season, and it's always very busy here in the Prescott area. And we've been actually working on a lot of things, and Sanford, you were very instrumental in helping us with securing a very important group for our Farm to Table event in September. Can you tell us Can we give a preview maybe?
Well, you know, I'm beating the drum for this great band. He happens to be my next door neighbor in Havasu.
Well, see, there you go.
And he's a longtime Los Angeles studio musician. His name is Virgil Venditto, and he is the bass player in a band called Sidewinder, and they play all over Arizona. We've caught them out in the Verde Valley and you know, back on the river up in Laughlin, and you know, so we were lucky that we were able to secure them, and luckily their schedule hadn't quite filled up yet, so they are going to be here on September 15th for our Farm to Table event, and they're a great band. It's going to be awesome.
Well, and we were just visiting the farm, and Charla has some great things going at the farm. We're going to be in a new location. She's secured a barn for us, but it still is outside. So this event is going to build up to be one of the most premier events that the Chamber has. So we're very excited, and thank you for helping us with that.
It's always a pleasure.
It's great. So to talk a little bit about what's going to be going on next, in May we kick off our walking tours, and this goes from May to October, most Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. It's good to call ahead, but whenever there's events out on the Yavapai Courthouse Plaza, we usually postpone those tours just because of the sound and it's a little busy. But these are walking tours. They're 90 minutes. We have a tour guide that helps us with that, and they're totally free. And it's a great way for you to learn about our history and to enjoy Prescott. And they're always busy, so make sure that you sign up for one of those and become a tourist in your hometown. It's really important to learn about what's going on. And those start, if you come to the Chamber office at 9:50 a.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you will be able to start on a tour. So we're pretty excited about that. And we also are going to be kicking off one of the events, Off Street Festival. That is May 26th through the 28th, and that's a Saturday, Sunday from 9 to 5 p.m., and that's actually in our Chamber parking lot. And so we're really excited about that. And then, of course, I'm going to just kind of brief about this one. June 9th and 10th is Territorial Days, and that is, again, Saturday, Sunday from 9 to 5, and that's on the Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza. And then the drum roll, we have our
Silent drum roll.
the silent drum roll, the 37th annual Prescott Bluegrass Festival,
Yeehaw.
which Lamb Chevrolet is our premier sponsor. They bring that event to us, for us, and you are too.
Cattle Country Radio is
You
right
betcha.
there for you. You
Absolutely, and we're very thankful for that. And I'm going to just kind of have a teaser on that because our headline band is Ryan Shoup and the Rubber Band, but we also were able to secure Tom Paxton and Don Jones. And Tom Paxton was a Grammy Award winner.
He's internationally renowned, and we're very lucky to have him.
It's amazing, and I'm not sure how Scott did it, but he secured the group, and we're very thrilled. So June 23rd and 24th is your free Bluegrass Festival, and we're so happy that we can bring this to the community. These are the kind of programs that really involve the whole community of all ages, really, from all over.
I'm on the one hand hoping for wonderful weather, although last year, you know, we did have that one moment
Ooh, wow.
where the
Yeah.
the bluegrass gods kind of blew in and mixed things up quite a bit. But along those lines, along those lines, I also wanted to get a word in about the condition of the forest right now, because you know it's a big draw for people from all over the Southwest. We have 1 million acres of ponderosa pine forest here, and it is bone dry. This has got to be the driest winter that I've ever experienced, and I've been here, you know, 33 years. So fire danger is at an absolute extreme. And I know there's been fire restrictions that have been put out by the Forest Service, and there's even a possibility that the forest may close at some point, which is, of course, to protect us and it. But I just want to urge everyone to just be very, very careful with, and don't even consider using any kind of open flame anywhere in the forest right now. It just is tinder dry. And as we saw with the Goodwin fire last year, a small spark can cause a big disaster, and we don't want that to happen here. You know, with any luck, the monsoons will come back and visit us towards the early summer, and we usually get a pretty good dousing there. So hopefully that will allow things to get back to normal. But for right now, we're in an extremely dry situation, and it requires us to be very, very cautious about how we handle ourselves on the trails and on the roads and in the campsites here in the Prescott area. So, you know, from the Prescott Chamber and from the Prescott Open Trails Association, we just want to caution you to be very careful with fire when you're up here.
That's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that with our group. Just to kind of talk a little bit, I've got a few more events that I want to share. We're pretty excited. Our Women in Business Luncheon is a very, very popular program as well. We have that scheduled for May 16th. And I'm so excited. Our guest speaker is going to be Sarah from Fancy That. And I really identify Sarah and her daughter as probably one of the top retailers in the area. They have 2 stores off the beaten path, and they run a very successful business. And so we're very thrilled to have them as our guest speaker on May 16th. On May 17th, we have the networking at night at Taylor and Pageant, and that starts at 5 p.m. Then, of course, I've already talked about some of our community events, but we have the Off-Street Festival that we're very excited about. So there's a lot going on. We're also thinking about Christmas. So pretty soon we'll be able to announce the theme of the parade and who our Grand Marshal will be. We're working on those details right now. And we're hoping to bring another great season to the Prescott area in regards to that.
Well, there's a lot of hard work that's being done behind the scenes at the Prescott Chamber, and so just know that we're putting our best foot forward when it comes to presenting and promoting a positive message to the people that not only work here and live here, but also visit here. You know, the fact is that, you know, Prescott is a one-of-a-kind place, and we don't take it for granted for 1 second. So we want to thank you, the viewers, for bringing us into your homes, and so that we could share the good news about what's going on with the business community here in Prescott.
Can I remind everybody to please remember to shop locally, shop Prescott, start here. It's really, really important for us to support our brick and mortar businesses. I just, you know, this is a campaign that's ongoing. Our group met recently, and we continue to talk about ways that we can encourage everyone to really shop locally.
And I've heard from people that have said, you know, I was getting ready to, you know, order something on Amazon, and it just all of a sudden went into my head, that Shop Prescott Start Here thing, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to get up, I'm going to go over to Staples. I still pay the Amazon price,
Right.
but I buy it at Staples. And you know what? It generates sales tax for the city and helps continue the good quality of life that we enjoy.
Absolutely.
Simple things like that
Absolutely.
go a long, long way.
I've had people report to me, like, oh, I bought here, I bought there, you know. So it's on everyone's mind, and we just want to continue to remind you that it's so important to shop locally.
And it's also important for you to tune in for Business Beat. And so we thank you for doing it. On behalf of Sherry Heine, I'm Sanford Cohen. Have a wonderful Prescott day wherever you may be. And tune in next time for another edition of
The Business Beat.